I still remember the chill I felt, not from the weather, but from the words Eva whispered when no one else could hear. I just don't like you. Simple, sharp, deadly. It was the last thing I expected from a manager who was supposed to be my mentor. My name is Lisa, and at 34, I was finally where I thought I wanted to be. An assistant manager at one of the most popular lifestyle stores in the city. The pay was great, the location was perfect, and I had worked hard to earn this position. When I started, I felt proud walking through those doors every morning. That pride didn't last long. Eva was the manager I trained under, a woman with 5 years of experience in the company, someone everyone respected or feared. During my first weeks, she was professional, even friendly. She taught me the ropes, gave me advice, and occasionally complimented me. But soon after I settled into my role, something shifted. Her smiles faded, replaced by cold stares. Every minor misstep was pointed out, even when it wasn't technically wrong. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe she was just strict. Maybe I needed to prove myself. Maybe I was imagining things, but I wasn't. The compliments stopped. The corrections became daily. She would casually remind me in front of others, "Remember, Lisa? I trained you." Almost like she wanted everyone to remember I was beneath her. Still, I kept pushing forward. I implemented some new procedures that boosted our sales. The owner, Mr. Daniels, even stopped by once to compliment me personally. I could tell Eva hated it. What I didn't know then was that this wasn't just professional jealousy. It was personal. Eva wasn't just tight with the general manager, Sandra, who I barely saw since she worked second shifts. They had been friends for over a decade, working together at another store before joining this one. I only discovered this connection months later, but by then, the damage was done. The real blow came one quiet Thursday evening. As I wrapped up paperwork, Sandra called me into the office. Her words were delivered with fake sympathy, but cut like knives. "Lisa, I don't think this is working out." I blinked. "Excuse me? You're still making mistakes after 6 months. Mistakes someone at your level shouldn't be making." "What mistakes exactly?" I asked, my voice steady even though I felt like the ground was shifting under me. She listed a few petty complaints, misplacing a supply order, forgetting a minor scheduling update. Things Eva had nagged me about but never documented. Most of what Sandra mentioned wasn't even true. I knew it, and I suspected Sandra did too. I tried to defend myself, but it was pointless. Her mind was made up. When I stepped out of the office, I felt like I'd been sucker punched. 6 months of dedication, progress, and results, all wiped away by a conversation behind closed doors. The store felt colder, the fluorescent lights harsher. And then as I turned the corner to grab my bag, Eva was waiting. That's when she leaned in, her voice low and venomous. "I just don't like you." And then she walked away like nothing happened. I stood there, stunned. Not devastated, not yet, but stunned. I needed this job. I had bills, dreams, and I genuinely loved the work. But more than anything, I felt betrayed. I had never been anything but respectful to Eva. Why? Because I dared to do well? Because I threatened her comfort zone? I tried calling Mr. Daniels, hoping he would hear me out. He sounded kind, but also detached. "Sandra runs the day-to-day," he explained. "I trust her judgment. Honestly, if things hadn't been so tense between you and Eva, maybe we could have worked it out." There it was, the dagger twisting. Eva had painted me as the problem all along. My job wasn't just gone, it was taken, and she made sure of it. As I packed up my things that night, I promised myself one thing. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to grovel. But I wasn't going to walk away quietly either. I spent the weekend replaying every conversation, every strange glance, every petty comment Eva had ever made. The puzzle pieces started shifting into place. I could see it now. Eva was never just tough on me. She was targeting me from day one. By Sunday night, I wasn't even sad anymore. I was angry. Angry at Eva for sabotaging me. Angry at Sandra for blindly trusting her. angry at myself for not realizing sooner how deep their connection ran. But what Eva didn't know about me was that I don't give up easily. I might have left the store that night without a job, but I didn't leave without options. First thing Monday, I started digging. The one thing Eva underestimated? My attention to detail. She might have been smug in person, but she was careless online. I'd heard snippets of gossip from coworkers about Eva's rough patch a few months ago. At the time, I thought nothing of it. Now, it felt like a clue. I opened my laptop and without hesitation subscribed to one of those online background search services. Within minutes, I found it. Eva Lynn Walters, DWI arrest, state of Crestview, 3 months ago. I stared at the screen, stunned. Not only was Eva hiding a criminal charge, but in our line of work, it was much more than just a personal mistake. It was a professional disaster. Managers at our level were required by law to report any criminal charges to the licensing board. It wasn't optional. A DWI wasn't just a black mark on her record. It was grounds for immediate suspension of her professional license, and without it, she couldn't legally hold her position. I double-checked. Triple-checked. It was all there. Public record, date of arrest, upcoming court hearing. She hadn't reported it. She had gambled on no one finding out. Now, I held the winning hand. My heart pounded as I debated what to do next. Part of me felt petty. Was this revenge? Was I lowering myself to her level? But then I remembered this wasn't about revenge. This was about justice. She'd manipulated and lied to push me out, and I had done nothing but try to do my job. She had taken food off my table without a second thought. She didn't deserve to get away with it. I called Mr. Daniels. This time, I didn't hesitate. Mr. Daniels, I know you said you trust Sandra and Eva, but you need to hear this. I could hear the shift in his tone the moment I mentioned Eva's DWI. Are you sure about this? Positive. I have the records right in front of me. She has a court date next month, and according to the state licensing board's guidelines, she was supposed to report this immediately. There was silence on the line, but I could almost hear the gears turning in his head. That's serious, he said finally. I had no idea. She didn't report anything. I stayed quiet, letting him process it. Lisa, he said after a long pause, I want to thank you for bringing this to me. I'm going to handle this personally. I hung up, feeling a strange mix of nerves and satisfaction. I had no idea what would happen next, but one thing was certain. The game had just changed. That night, I barely slept. I kept picturing Eva's smug grin, Sandra's dismissive tone, and that awful whisper in the hallway. I just don't like you. Well, the feeling was mutual now. The next morning, my phone rang earlier than expected. It was Mr. Daniels. Eva's been let go, he said, calm but firm. She violated company policy and failed to disclose her charge. I owe you an apology, Lisa. I should have looked deeper. If you're interested, I'd like to offer you Eva's position. Full manager. Same salary Eva was making. Actually, more. I think you'd be great. For a moment, I was speechless. This was more than I expected. Thank you, I finally said. I'd be honored. Oh, and one more thing, he added. Sandra and I had a serious talk. She'll be staying on for now, but under closer supervision. We'll be making some adjustments. I agreed to meet him the next morning to sign paperwork and officially step into the role. As I ended the call, I felt it. Not just relief, but power. Eva thought she could destroy me quietly. She had no idea who she was dealing with, but what neither of us knew yet was that the real confrontation was still to come. The next morning, I arrived at the store earlier than usual. The parking lot was still empty, the air crisp with the quiet promise of change. I walked through the doors, not as the assistant manager Eva had dismissed, but as the new store manager, with keys in hand and the owner's full backing. Mr. Daniels was already inside, waiting with a fresh set of paperwork and a professional but genuine smile. Congratulations, he said. It's officially yours now. As I signed the contract, I couldn't help but think about Eva. Did she know yet? Had the news reached her? Part of me imagined her brushing it off, convincing herself she'd land on her feet, charm her way into another job just like she always did. But deep down, I knew this hit would be different. This wasn't just losing a position. This was losing her license, her credibility, and the career she had carefully built. Once the paperwork was finalized, Mr. Daniels gave me one more surprise. "By the way," he said casually, "Ava will be stopping by today to pick up her personal belongings. She doesn't know you've been promoted yet." His eyes twinkled, amused. "You're welcome to stick around for it if you'd like." A slow smile crept across my face. I wouldn't miss it. I spent the next hour preparing the store for opening, going about my usual duties. It felt surreal, like nothing had changed, yet everything had. The staff, unaware of the shift in power, greeted me as usual. I kept it quiet for now. I wanted Eva to see it herself. The door chimed just after opening. I didn't even have to turn around. I recognized her sharp heels clicking against the tile before I saw her. When I finally faced her, Eva's expression froze mid-step. Her usual confidence faltered as her eyes flicked from me to the store keys clipped to my belt, to the stack of manager files sitting on my desk. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice low but sharp. I shrugged, keeping my tone light. "Working." I paused just long enough for the weight to hit. "As the new store manager." The color drained from her face. "That's not possible." I didn't have to say much. The panic in her eyes said it all. She understood immediately. Whatever version of events she had spun for Sandra, or even for herself, unraveled in an instant. And it was delicious. Ava looked around like she was searching for backup, but the store was quiet. No Sandra. No allies. Just me. "I don't know what you think you did," she hissed, stepping closer. "But you won't last. You're not like me." I met her gaze without flinching. "You're right," I replied. "I'm not like you." She stood there, fists clenched, lips pressed tight. I could almost see her calculating how to spin this. To me, to Mr. Daniels, to whoever would listen. But she had nothing. Not this time. "Your things are in the office," I said calmly. "You'll want to grab them before your court date, I imagine." Her head snapped toward me. "What did you just say?" "Oh," I said, tilting my head as if I'd almost forgotten. "Good luck on the 14th. The date of her court hearing. For a moment, I thought she might actually explode right there in the middle of the store. But instead, she just swallowed hard, turned on her heel, and stormed into the office. When she reemerged moments later, carrying a box of her belongings, she avoided my eyes completely. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The satisfaction wasn't in humiliating her. It was in knowing that I had played by the rules, while she had tried to cheat them and lost. As she walked out the door, I couldn't resist one final comment. "Ava," I called softly. She turned slightly, enough for me to see the resentment burning behind her forced composure. "Thanks for the training," I said. "It came in handy." And just like that, she was gone. For the first time in months, the store felt warm again. Bright. Like mine. Not just the building, but the people, the energy, the future. I wasn't just filling Eva's shoes. I was rewriting the story she had tried to control. And I wasn't done yet. Because as I'd soon discover, Ava wasn't the only one who had secrets. The days following Eva's exit were quieter than I expected. But the silence felt loaded, like the calm before a storm. On the surface, everything seemed to fall into place. I slipped into my new role seamlessly. Staff adapted quickly, sales kept steady, and even Sandra, who barely acknowledged me before, now kept things professional. Yet, beneath that smooth surface, I could sense tension, subtle and unsettling. Word of Eva's firing spread fast, as gossip always does. Some employees were shocked, others less so. A few even whispered that they always knew something was off, but never dared to say it. I let the rumors circulate without confirming or denying anything. I had no interest in fueling the drama. After all, I had a store to run. but the quiet didn't last. Late one afternoon, as I was finalizing inventory reports, Sandra knocked lightly on my office door. For someone who used to treat me like I was invisible, she suddenly seemed eager for a conversation. "Mind if I come in?" she asked. I gestured toward the chair across from me. "Of course." She sat, fidgeting with the strap of her handbag. "Look, I just wanted to check in. I know things have been unusual lately." I nodded, letting her talk. "I didn't realize Eva hadn't reported the DWI," she continued. "She never told me. If I had known—" "You would have done what?" I asked softly, keeping my tone even. Sandra blinked, caught off guard. "I would have made sure the proper steps were taken." I didn't push further. I could tell she was nervous and maybe even guilty. Sandra might have been tight with Eva, but I was starting to think she hadn't known the full story. Maybe Eva kept secrets from her too. Sandra cleared her throat. "Anyway, Mr. Daniels is pleased with how you've stepped up. I just wanted you to know that." Translation. She knew the owner had sided with me, and now she was scrambling to stay on the right side of things. I thanked her and watched as she quickly excused herself, leaving behind the scent of too late loyalty. That evening, I stayed after hours to organize some files Eva had left behind. Most of it was nothing. Old schedules, sales reports, boring day-to-day paperwork. But then I found a small, locked drawer in the bottom of the filing cabinet. The key was taped underneath the desk, probably forgotten in Eva's haste to leave. Inside were notes. Lots of them. My stomach dropped as I sifted through them. Eva had been keeping a detailed log about me. She had documented every small mistake I supposedly made, complete with exaggerated versions of events and even fabricated incidents. There were notes about conversations we never had, supposed warnings she gave me, and even falsified customer complaints. But what caught my attention most was a printed email, one she must have thought no one would ever find. It was from Sandra. "I agree. She's too ambitious. Keep documenting everything, even the small stuff. Mr. Daniels trusts my judgment, and if we show her as a problem, we can make sure she doesn't last." The date on the email was 2 months before I was fired. I stared at the paper, my pulse pounding. I had known Eva wanted me out. But Sandra? The one who just sat in my office pretending to be supportive? The one who was now acting like she had no idea Eva had been manipulating things? They were in it together. The betrayal stung more than I expected. I had been so focused on Eva that I never considered Sandra might have been pulling strings from the shadows. No wonder she defended Eva so fiercely. No wonder Mr. Daniels mentioned tension between me and Eva when he first fired me. They had fed him a narrative he trusted without question. I leaned back in my chair, letting the weight of the discovery sink in. The fight wasn't over. Eva might have been the one to whisper the final words before my firing, but Sandra had handed her the script. I spent the rest of the evening making copies, scanning everything into a secure folder. I wasn't going to act impulsively. Not this time. I had learned that patience and preparation were my best weapons. As I locked the office and stepped into the cool night air, one thought kept echoing in my head. Eva was out. But Sandra? Sandra was still sitting comfortably in her position. For now. For the next few weeks, I played my part perfectly. I showed up early, ran the store efficiently, smiled at customers, and treated Sandra with the same courtesy I always had. I said nothing about the email, nothing about the files, nothing about the betrayal. But I watched, and I waited. I noticed every nervous glance Sandra gave me during manager meetings, every time she avoided eye contact or rushed through discussions. She knew something had shifted, even if she didn't know exactly what. It was subtle, but I could feel it. The power dynamic had changed. She might still have been my superior in title, but I was no longer the assistant manager quietly taking orders. I had learned from Eva's mistake. I wasn't going to rush. I wasn't going to go to Mr. Daniels until I had everything I needed. Not just the email, but a pattern. Proof that Sandra had been manipulating the narrative behind the scenes for months. I wanted the truth to be undeniable. So I started my own documentation. I tracked every decision Sandra made, every questionable instruction she gave, every backhanded comment about me or the staff. I wasn't paranoid. I was prepared. Just like Eva, Sandra was sloppy when she thought no one was watching. She'd casually mention keeping certain employees in check, or openly refer to some of the younger staff as replaceable. She'd still drop occasional comments about me, always in passing, like, "Lisa's doing okay. For now." She couldn't help herself. Old habits. At the same time, I rebuilt trust with the team. Without Eva's constant presence, morale improved dramatically. Staff who had once been distant started opening up, casually mentioning how weird things felt before, how tense Eva and Sandra had been behind the scenes. No one knew specifics, but the consensus was clear. Something had been off. Then came the final piece. Late one Friday evening, after closing, one of the younger employees, Mia, lingered behind. "Hey, Lisa," she said hesitantly. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." Mia looked down, nervously twisting the strap of her bag. "Back when Eva was here? Did you know Sandra told us not to come to you with problems? She said we should go straight to Eva because you were still learning and might, make things worse." My jaw tightened, but I kept my expression neutral. "She said that?" Mia nodded. I didn't think it was right, but... Well, Eva scared most of us. I thanked her and told her she did nothing wrong. Inside, though, I felt the final click of the puzzle falling into place. It wasn't just me Sandra had sabotaged. It was the entire staff. She and Eva had isolated me deliberately, cutting me off from the very team I was supposed to lead, creating a false image of incompetence. The next morning, I scheduled a meeting with Mr. Daniels. I showed up with a neatly organized folder, emails, notes, employee statements, and my own logs detailing Sandra's behavior. I didn't go in angry. I went in professional, calm, and ready. I laid it all out for him, methodically, just like I had learned to do when dealing with Eva. Mr. Daniels read in silence, occasionally glancing up with furrowed brows. When he finished, he leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "I trusted Sandra," he said quietly. "She's been with me for years." I didn't say anything. I knew he needed a moment. After a long pause, he looked up at me. "Thank you for showing me this, Lisa. I had no idea it ran this deep." I nodded. "I understand, sir. I just thought you deserved to know." He exhaled sharply. "She'll be dealt with immediately." I left his office that day knowing the storm was about to break. But this time, I wasn't the one caught in it. By Monday morning, the whispers had already started. The staff noticed Sandra's empty office. People exchanged glances, murmuring, wondering. By lunchtime, the truth was out. Sandra had been placed on immediate suspension pending further investigation. I didn't gloat. I simply kept working, knowing that for once, I wasn't the one walking on eggshells. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over just yet. Because Eva was out. Sandra was about to be out. And I still had one more thing to do. By the end of the week, Sandra was officially gone. Mr. Daniels sent out a carefully worded company-wide email citing policy violations and unprofessional conduct, without going into detail. But everyone knew. The gossip spread like wildfire. And just like that, the two women who had tried so hard to destroy me were out of the picture. I thought I would feel triumphant, but instead I just felt free. The weight that had pressed on my shoulders for months had lifted. The store felt lighter. The team worked together more smoothly. For the first time since I started, there was no tension, no walking on eggshells. I didn't tell anyone about the details. Not about Eva's DWI. Not about the email from Sandra. I didn't have to. The results spoke for themselves. Staff were happy, customers noticed the positive energy, and even Mr. Daniels visited more often, casually mentioning how impressed he was with the store's progress. "You've turned this place around," he told me during one visit. I should have seen things more clearly back then. I gave a modest smile but didn't rub it in. I didn't need to. The truth had already done all the talking. A few weeks later, it happened. I was in the back room preparing for the seasonal sale when I heard the front door chime. I wasn't expecting any deliveries or appointments. When I stepped out to the floor, I froze. Ava was standing at the counter, clutching a folder to her chest, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes widened when she saw me. Standing behind the register, clipboard in hand, name tag now reading, Store Manager. I could see the panic ripple through her as the reality hit. "You," she whispered. "Me," I replied, calm as ever. Eva swallowed hard, glancing around as if hoping someone else might swoop in and rescue her. "I need to speak with Mr. Daniels," she stammered. "He's not here," I said. "And I don't think he'll be taking meetings today." I deserve a second chance," she said, voice shaking. "It was just a mistake, Lisa. You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I said, cutting her off. "I understand you tried to end my career over personal jealousy. I understand you manipulated reports, isolated me from my team, and thought you'd never get caught." Ava's mouth opened, but no words came. I stepped closer, lowering my voice just enough so only she could hear. "And I understand that you're the only one responsible for where you are now." She stared at me, blinking rapidly, then turned and hurried out of the store without another word. The door closed softly behind her. No dramatic outburst. No threats. Just quiet defeat. I stood there for a moment, letting it sink in. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't even about Eva or Sandra. It was about me. About how I had stood up piece by piece to people who underestimated me, who thought they could tear me down without consequences. And I didn't crumble. I prepared. I waited. And when the time came, I acted, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. In the weeks that followed, life returned to normal, or better than normal. The store thrived. Staff who had once been timid now spoke up with ideas and suggestions. We even broke a monthly sales record. Mr. Daniels officially named me regional manager, a title that would have gone to Sandra if things had played out differently. Mia, the young employee who had confided in me, pulled me aside after the announcement. "Thanks for standing up," she said. "Not just for yourself, for all of us." I smiled. "Sometimes," I told her, "the best revenge is simply doing better than they ever expected." She grinned. "And doing it quietly." Exactly. Months passed, and occasionally I'd hear a rumor about Eva. Struggling to find work, her license still under review. As for Sandra, she'd quietly disappeared from the industry altogether. But I didn't waste time thinking about them. Instead, I focused on what mattered. Leading my team, growing the store, and knowing deep down that I'd earned every bit of it. Not because I'd stooped to their level, but because I had stayed standing when they tried to knock me down. And that, I realized, was the real victory.